So it's so interesting how this podcast episode came about because we're talking about 12 boob jobs today. Yep, I said it right. 12 boob jobs, everything we've learned, everything we regret, everything we would do different, what we maybe don't regret. But Dr. Amie Hornaman and I, Natalie Jill here, we were set to interview each other. We had just met recently. She was going to interview me about midlife fat loss. I was going to interview her about thyroid fix. We had just met, we clicked instantly. And I had to postpone our interview. And when I said why, she said, "Oh my gosh, I have a very similar journey." I said, "I have to postpone it because I have a breast implant rupture and it is not my first rodeo with this. This will be my sixth surgery." And she right away left me a message back and said, "What did you say when you left me a message right back?"
Yeah, that I get it because back in July, I too had a rupture and I was very open about it on social. I'm like, my boob exploded. FYI, this can
Yep.
happen. But I had a rupture. I had my sixth surgery as well. So I totally understood what you were going through. And I wanted you to know that I got it. And then that just started a whole back and forth conversation about
Yeah.
boobs. It's been wonderful.
And then we thought, you know what? We've been talking on voice note about this. Let's take this on our podcast because there's so much talk now about breast implant illness. There's so much talk about removing implants. And Dr. Amie and I, we are of the generation that it was super common to get implants. I know you're almost 50, right? And I'm
Yeah.
52.
Yep.
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 Yep. So when we were in our late teens, early 20s, it was the thing. I mean, really, truly, everyone I knew was getting implants. It was the thing, and it was not considered unhealthy. It wasn't considered toxic. It was just, I don't know, it was like so normalized, right?
Totally. And because we were both in the fitness realm too, it was even more normalized because
Yeah,
you either got implants or you stood out on stages in photo shoots. You kind of stood out as, oh, yeah, the flat one. And when
that's
you
right.
get in shape, and I'll share that, I'm sure you have a similar story. When you get in shape, you lose your boobs. I mean, they're fat, right?
Yeah.
So you start losing weight and getting toned and getting muscular and looking athletic, which is awesome, but then you go completely flat.
So today on this episode, we wanted to share our journeys. We're going to both share sort of like why we got them, what we've navigated through the years, and then our feelings now. And this is important. If you have them and you've been thinking, I've got to take them out, I think this episode's for you. If you're thinking about getting them, I think this episode's for you. If you think you've got BII, this episode is for you. There's just anything implant oriented. I think you're going to enjoy this episode. And we're going to be as authentic as we can and share exactly what we've been through and why and where we stand now with it. And as we record this, I'm about to enter into a sixth surgery because of a rupture. So, and you just recently had your sixth surgery. So I guess let's start with tell us the story of what you got, why you got them. I know it was fitness oriented, but what prompted you to get them?
Yeah. So back in the day, in my early 20s, I started competing in figure shows, fitness and figure shows. And, you start in, I was always conscious about my body. I always lifted, I always worked out, but I never went that extra step of getting ready for a show where you're standing on stage in a bikini being judged. FYI, for anyone out there, that's what is she talking about? Yeah. Yeah. You get down to your most athletic self and you step on stage in a teeny bikini and be judged in front of everybody in the audience. So looking back, it's a little bit crazy to do, but it's what I wanted to do. I wanted that challenge, right? How could I make my body the best? And I wanted to go through that whole show prep and that regimen. Well, I got hooked and I did plenty of shows after that, plenty of photo shoots after that. But I knew after that first show that something wasn't right up top. I just wasn't filling out the bikini top. And because I have scoliosis, so my rib cage is slightly twisted because my spine is curved.
Mm.
And what that does to your chest wall, and I learned this after the fact, is it actually kind of indents one side of your rib cage. And with that indentation, when I lost, and I had walked around as a full C my whole life. I mean, that's what I grew up
So
as.
you
I
had
was
already
kind of,
had them. You had them.
yeah,
Yeah.
I did. I had natural boobs, but then when I got ready for the show, I lost those. And literally one became, and my plastic surgeon actually said this to me. She's like, one is a full A cup, kind of perky. This other one is a droopy B. It looks like you've been breastfeeding for about a year.
Wow.
And I mean, it was kind of reality. It was truth right in my face. She wasn't she wasn't really being mean. She was just being blunt. And I can't fault her for that, because I was like, you know what? You're kind of right. That's exactly what they look like. So not only was I going in for enlargement, I was also going in to be balanced again, because I didn't want that off balance look. So I went in, and that was my first set of implants. They were saline, and they balanced me out. So one implant for me always has to be larger than the other in order for both to look,
that makes sense,
equal.
So for me, mine was a little bit different. I was 19 years old, and I was waiting tables at Hooters. Yes, I was. And I was flat as a board. I didn't even have a full A cup. I mean, I was always flat as a board. I was self-conscious my whole teens about it. I was one that developed late. I started menstruating late. Like I was 15. I was just really late to everything. And I remember working at Hooters, and this is years ago. People were not as politically correct on things. I feel like we grew up in the world of my mom was drinking tab soda. We were always talking diets. Like advertisements to be skinny. Like it wasn't, there was no body positive movement at the time. It wasn't, except like people expected you to look like a Barbie doll, and they weren't afraid to talk about it. I mean, that's what really advertising, you walk into stores now, you see mannequins that represent all types of body sizes. We did not have that. I mean, everything was Barbie doll looking, skinny, thin, long legs, big boobs, tan, long blonde hair. Like that was the image. Right. And I remember working at Hooters, and the one I worked at, you couldn't wear the little tank tops. And we wore these little orange shorts, and you would wear these t-shirts that you would tie in the back. And I remember I was flat as a board. And I remember getting comments from customers over and over again. Oh, you've got some Hooters there, don't you? Like sarcastic. I mean, I think back at this, I mean, if my daughter were to work there, like, would I be okay with that? Absolutely not.
Right.
Whatever reason, I was doing this, and I was in college and doing this, and I wanted a boob job. That was the thing. I obsessed over it. I wanted one. And I remember even going to a surgeon for a consult, because all the girls at Hooters had them. And they told me the price, and that was way out of my budget at that time. And I remember applying for one of those like care credit cards to finance them. And I remember begging my parents to co-sign it. And they were like, absolutely not. And I convinced my dad to co-sign it. Like, I think back now, like, what? So he co-signed my loan to get my boobs. And I went and got a first pair, which was silicone for me. That was my first taste in it. And by the way, I remember waking up, because they used to put them under the muscle automatically.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up thinking I felt like I had bricks in me, and I wanted them out. Like right away, I was like, this doesn't feel right.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. Like an elephant on your chest.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I went under the muscle too with my first one.
But I didn't feel at the time that people judged it in a negative way. It was like an initiation, like, oh, good, you finally got your boobs. That's how I felt.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then the attention afterwards. I mean, you're young, you're 19. I was 21, 22. I mean, we were loving life. We're like, yeah, take a look at these walking down the street. That's right.
Yeah. No, interestingly enough, my surgeon that had put in a pretty conservative set. They weren't overly big. I was probably a small C. And I always wanted them bigger. I mean, they never felt big enough. I don't know if you went through that, but they never felt big enough at the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I too started off with a moderate C, because that's what I was. So that's what I was used to. I was just going back to what I was used to. And then I can't remember how many years I had those in. Well, my second surgery, my first change up occurred actually because they did put them under the muscle. And I feel, looking back, I feel like my surgeon didn't really ask me how much I work out. I mean, ladies, if you do push-ups, you do not want them under the muscle.
I learned that the hard way too.
Yeah. So over time, what had happened is my pec muscle literally started compressing the implant, almost pulling it up. So I had the implant high and then breast tissue down below.
Yeah. It is like, and you could like flex and make them look weird. It was like a weird thing. It's bizarre to me that they even put them under the muscle at all, when you think about it that way. But they thought it would look more natural, but it doesn't even make sense in my head how it would go under a muscle and look more natural.
More natural. Right.
Yeah. So what happened with how did you end up in a second surgery?
So that it started to look weird. So I was just going to go in and just have that one implant swapped out. But then when I went in for the consultation back with my first doctor, she was talking and she's like, by that time, silicone had been re-released. So when I
Yes.
first they must have pulled silicone right after you had
They did. They did. It was right
Okay.
after. In fact, I actually got back a class action lawsuit amount of money in the mail because they had just recalled them after I got them in.
Okay. Right.
But I
So they
still, this is
re-released them.
to be young and naive. Like I still did not connect the dots that there could be something wrong. I'm thinking like, oh, just somebody was mad. I didn't understand what I had really stepped into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I didn't have a choice. So when I got
Mhm.
mine done, I didn't even have a choice. But then, well, they did studies. So I think, I mean, what you're saying actually is not wrong. I think maybe a couple of people did get mad and
Mhm.
sued and attributed their health conditions to the silicone that was out back
Yeah.
then. But then they did some studies and they kind of came all the way around and said, you know what? We're not really seeing a strong connection here. There's not a problem with the silicone versus the saline. We're not seeing a difference between the two types of implants
Mhm.
in health outcomes in women. So they
Yeah.
reintroduced the silicone back into women's choices.
So with me, what happened with me was I pretty instantly got something called capsular contracture. And for some of you listening have experienced this, some of you don't even know what that is, but it's basically your body is rejecting the implant and your body is fighting it. And it creates this hardening to almost push it out of your body. Again, dumb and naive. I wasn't connecting the dots that like maybe my body doesn't actually want these. So I formed this capsular contracture and that brings me into a series of surgeries. And when they do them first, like easy to kind of break it up. And then a surgeon had suggested, you know what, you've got capsular contracture. Let's go into surgery. We'll break this up and I'm going to replace them with saline and the problem should go away. And with me, when I went into that surgery, I woke up, I remember, I'll never forget this. I was in my early 20s and I woke up to my mom standing over me. And she said, I should have told him to take those dang things out. So my mom knew. Apparently, when he went in there, it had the reason one, it had become a capsular contracture. The other one still felt natural. And the reason it still felt natural is because it had completely exploded and ruptured. Now, before you have an augmentation or a redo or anything, they do a mammogram, they do imaging to see if it's intact. They didn't do that then. This is years ago. This is over 25 years ago. So the surgeon goes in unknowingly to cut and to replace, and silicone spills everywhere, the gel. Like still till this day, it's literally in my lymph nodes. And I don't want to fast forward too far ahead, but when people say that, why do I still have them or just get them out or they're toxic or anything, it's hard to explain to them, but I want them to understand I have the worst possible thing that could have happened with silicone. When you have a silicone rupture now, they stay in the capsule.
Yes.
It does not go into your body. So a lot of people that experience BII or have these problems, it's because they had a rupture or it's intact and their body doesn't like the silicone. My silicone from that implant in my early 20s is in my lymph node still. It is all over my body. I will never be able to get that out. It's just not possible that I know of. It's everywhere. So if there is something that I'm going to get from that, there's nothing I can do to avoid it. So me keeping implants in or taking them out or whatever is not going to protect me against that since I already had that rupture.
Right. That's true. It's already in.
It's already
and I had a similar rupture. So I've had 2 ruptures total, a similar rupture recently, which we'll get to, but that was my July change out, swap out. And he had explained to me that the silicone did kind of leak out, even though it was a gummy bear type of implant, meaning, I mean, you guys know gummy bears, when you pull off the gummy bear's head, it's still basically intact. You just have 2 pieces of the gummy bear. So these implants these days are more gummy like that. But I still had pieces and some liquidized silicone that had traveled outside of my capsule as well. It was actually down near my rib cage and they had to dig that out and then tighten up the capsule again. So just like you, and we can get to this, if I was going to react negatively health-wise, it would have happened. I would have.
Here's what I don't know, Amie. I have celiac and I got celiac in my early 30s. It's an autoimmune. So for all I know, that could have been related to that. I'm not to say yes or no, it didn't happen. I don't know. Right. However, what I feel strong, and I can keep going through the journey of the implants. What I want people to understand if they're considering getting them, this is really important. Like the most important thing I want to say to people, if you are considering getting them, just know this is a lifelong thing. Like this is a lifelong thing. Some people have better odds than other, but here you and I have each had. I'll have 6 surgeries. You've had 6. This is a lifelong thing. So this is not you put them in and you're done. This is you put them in and you're navigating this every few years, possibly.
Definitely. And it's recommended that you get them replaced every 10 years anyways. These days, I know that they can stretch them out. I know some women that have had them in 15 and 20 years. But by that time, I mean, even just the mold aspect or, things growing around the implant, you just want to get them swapped out just to stay safe.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I will say once you have capsular contracture, I learned this the hard way too. The reason I kept getting it apparently is it's actually a bacterial infection. I didn't know this. So once you actually get capsular contracture, if you do not completely take out that capsule and clear out that infection, as you replace it, you will keep getting capsular contracture. And I didn't understand that until I had an amazing doctor about 7 years ago fix me. And I never had an issue after that because she took out that capsule, repaired my muscle and put them over the muscle. And I never got capsular contracture again.
Oh, that is interesting. Okay. So I did have capsular contracture as well. And the doctor had to go in, I had to go under and he broke it up. Like it was not a surgery that you would want to be awake for. Like he got in there and basically massaged so heavily that it broke up the capsule. But it's interesting that you're saying that because my now surgeon, who I love, during the July surgery, he did say something about he had to clean out the capsule and then tighten it down. That's why. So I bet that's what he did just to prevent.
Prevent getting it back again. Yeah. So what's interesting is the next thing is why did our implants rupture again? Like why did mine rupture again recently? And I know that mine actually ruptured from a mammogram. I don't know if you know how yours ruptured.
I don't. I believe, and we've been going round and round of this in my head and talking to my husband too. Like, how do you think it? You think you squeezed them too hard, honey? I don't know. I mean, to this day, I don't know whether it was, doing a row on a bench with the weight in front of me and having that pressure. I don't know if it was massage, getting a deep tissue massage. And, there are times when I'm getting a massage that I'm like, okay, a little bit easy there because you're pushing my boobs into the table. Yeah. Thank you.
But they're not supposed to be that they're, so you think about it, like they've had things if you're running a tire over them or whatever, they're not supposed to be like that. What I know for sure is my last mammogram really, really hurt. Like they pulled, they pinched, and I think that's what did it because it was the report on that showed the rupture. And what I did learn from multiple consultations after is that you've got to be extremely careful with mammograms. And in fact, you almost shouldn't do them with implants and instead could ask for a breast MRI, which could still be thorough. So moving forward, if I were to choose to keep them, I'm going to not get a mammogram. I would have a breast MRI.
That is smart. And again, now that you're saying that, 2 years ago, I had a mammogram and I had actually a questionable one. So I had to go back for more and I still had to do the 3D imaging anyways, because of the implants, because they can't get a good picture of the tissue anyways with an implant in. So ladies with implants, don't get the mammogram. Just get the breast imaging. They have the 3D imaging now. They have the ultras. I mean, they can do so much without squeezing your breast in a very tight machine.
Okay. Now I want to talk about the obvious because I know some people are listening going, well, girls, are you just, this is dumb. Why wouldn't you just take them out? And I want to talk about that a little bit because this is more than just, let's just take them out. And I'll say first this, if I knew that just completely taking them out was going to prevent any problem with silicone down the road, then I would do it despite all the psychological things. That's not an option for me because I already had a massive rupture that's still in me. So I know that. Second thing is what people don't realize, and this might be shallow to some. I'm just going to tell you what goes on in my head. Going from a double D that I've been for 33 years to flat as a board again with scars everywhere, that's a hard pill to swallow for me. I don't know if I'm that strong. I'm just saying. Now, if it was like, this is a guaranteed healthier step for you, then I would be open-minded to it more, but it's not for me because I already had that rupture. That's just where my brain is right now. I'm just being really honest about it.
No, I appreciate your honesty on that. And I'm sure everyone does because you're just being real. And really to stack on top of that honesty, I feel good with my breast implants. Like
Mhm.
I feel more confident. So whenever I hear the argument of, oh, isn't that vain to go get a surgery? You're getting a surgery.
Mhm.
You have 6 surgeries just to have those. I go, well, do you go to the gym? Do
Yeah.
you get your hair colored? Do you put makeup on every day? Do you get your eyebrows done? Do you maybe get a little bit of Botox? You're
Mhm.
doing things to make you feel better about yourself. And I am all for that.
Yeah.
I have supported women in doing what they want to do. I'll have patients come and be like, I think I want to get a tummy tuck. I'm like, go for it, girl.
Yeah.
You do that because that is going to make you feel better looking at yourself, getting naked with your partner. I don't care what it is, putting on a bikini, going on vacation. You are going to hold yourself
Totally.
higher day to day because you feel confident rather than
Yes.
wearing big old shirts because you want to hide what you got. No,
Yeah.
none of that. You do you and do things that make you feel great. And that was my choice. So if you
Yeah.
told me today, you're going to have 6 surgeries and I realize I still have more in my future.
Yeah.
Would you do it? I would say yes, I would.
You would? Okay. So I'm the
Yes.
opposite. I don't think I would do it knowing what I know now.
Okay.
But however, like if I could go back in time and if I knew this, if I knew I was going to have all this stuff happen and who knows if it caused the celiac or not, I would say I wish I had never done it. However, now that I'm in it, it's very hard to say I'm just going to take them out and be done and have, like just so you guys know what's involved, to take them out is an explant surgery. So they remove the capsule, the full capsule. They do a block surgery. But because if you've gone from a double D and you have zero tissue, you do a full lift. Otherwise, you literally have hanging skin. So that involves not only a scar under your breast, it involves a vertical scar from your nipple down, plus around your nipple. So you got multiple scars. And then I will be concave, not flat, concave. Like I will have a hole there. So to me, I've talked to my husband about this numerous times and he's very supportive of whatever I decide. But hearing the clear facts that I already had the rupture that's in my body, that is going to mess me up so psychologically. You all can think I'm shallow all you want. I'm just telling you, it's going to mess with my confidence. To me, I would rather just go a lot smaller and still have something. That's what I've decided. But I would say I regret doing it to begin with. I know why I did it. I just regret that I did it to begin with.
Right. Right. And I will share on that BII note.
Mm-hmm.
I have had, I would say about 10 patients get the breast explant surgery. 5 of them said that it was the best decision of their life.
Really?
They felt better the day they walked out of surgery.
Yes.
100% they would do it again. 5 of them felt no difference.
Really?
And they're really having a hard time. And a couple of them are thinking about going back in.
Really?
Back. Yes.
Okay.
Because
It's
they
interesting.
thought it would make a difference. So
And so what I do believe BII is real. But I also am concerned that a lot of people might assume they have it when they don't. Like there's other things they haven't navigated yet because there's so many other things. I mean, it could be perimenopause. It could be their hormones. It could be an autoimmune that it could be so many other things that aren't breast implant, illness related. Some people do have it, but I don't know that everybody has it. Which, by the way, have you noticed it's a little bit like, I'm just going to say it, it's a little bit like a cult of people that have I feel like I get attacked, and I'll get attacked on this episode. I already know it. We're going to have some people, the BII police, without knowing our background, our story or anything, they're just like, you should take them out. This is toxic. This is and I just feel that everybody has a unique situation. So just because that's your journey or your particular situation doesn't mean it's everybody's journey and situation. That's how I feel.
Right. Oh, 100%. And we're both going to get attacked a little bit, but I think it has to come back to respect of each and every individual's decision.
Yes.
Like I would never tell a patient or a listener who said to me, you know what, I'm really thinking about getting explant surgery because I really truly believe that all my problems started after I got my implants in. I wouldn't discourage her.
That makes sense then though. That makes sense.
It makes sense. I mean, I would never discourage her. At the same time, nor would I encourage someone to go have them out just because they have them in. And we think maybe kind of sort of it might be tied to their autoimmune or their health conditions that they're dealing with. I have Hashimoto's too. Yeah. Now looking back again, I mean, okay.
So did your Hashimoto's come up after? So it's interesting. So yours might be related to that rupture too. We don't know.
It was years after though. So
Okay.
I can't think about I don't know the timing of the first rupture and the Hashi diagnosis. I've never pieced that together. I'd have to go back and look.
Okay.
But after my first set of implants, I mean, it was a good, oh gosh, 6, 7, 8 years after that I was diagnosed. So I can't really say there's a direct correlation between
Mhm.
having the implants in my body. And even with saline, they still have a silicone exterior.
That's true.
So
The other
you're
thing
still
is,
gonna react.
so here's the interesting thing about autoimmune, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're very knowledgeable on this, but with autoimmune, you have to have the gene to get the autoimmune to begin with. So you have to be predisposition to get an autoimmune. And then your body needs a stress or trauma to bring that on. So the implants could be one thing that brings that on, but it doesn't guarantee that you're not going to get an autoimmune by taking them out or not having implants, because any stressor could create an autoimmune. Is that correct?
Oh, 100%. Pregnancy, perimenopause, menopause, hormonal changes can turn on
Getting
that
a
autoimmune
virus, getting mono,
Yes.
getting anything like that could do
Yes.
that.
Exactly.
Getting COVID could have done that for people.
Yep. 100%.
Any autoimmune is always triggered by a stressor. That's my understanding of it. And there's lots of autoimmune disorders that are that. So that's interesting that you actually had patients. Some feel better, some don't. So what is your thought on somebody that has them, they don't have symptoms, and they're thinking, I just should take them out because?
Well, I would go through that thought process like you did.
Mhm.
How are you going to feel? What is the surgery? What does it involve? What is the cost? And what is the healing time emotionally and mentally and physically afterwards? Because you are going to go through that mourning. You are going to look different in all of your clothes. Like you said, it could be a concave. Maybe it will be concave.
Mine would have been concave for sure.
That's a heavy,
it's a heavy,
that's a heavy load. Yeah. That's a lot to deal with.
And I don't, if someone could tell me I'm shallow all they want, I'm just telling you what's real for me. It's going to affect me. It honestly would really affect me I mean, I don't mind going a lot smaller, and I will go a lot smaller. That's true. But just completely removing is very intimidating to me right now.
That's a big step. I mean, think about the emotional trauma that a woman goes through when she gets a breast cancer diagnosis and told she needs to have a mastectomy. Yes. I mean, that is a very similar surgery to breast explant, except with mastectomy, they can do the rebuild, but they're
doing it with implants. So that's the other thing. So see, implants have gotten so villainized, but like that has actually been a lifeline for a lot of women that have had mastectomies.
Yes.
And silicone in general, if you think about, there's all types of body parts that helps with. It's not just implants. If you have an elbow replacement, a knee replacement, like that's all made from silicone. So it's interesting. There's this big push about breast implants bad, but what about silicone for other body parts?
Yeah, you wouldn't say like, hey, I don't really want that knee to be redone. I'm just gonna chop it off. Yeah. Just cut it off at the knee and I'll just be a peg leg. Like, no, you're going to have that done for quality of life. Now, of course, we don't need implants for quality of life, or do we? I don't know. For confidence of life. Yeah, maybe there is some quality of life mixed in there.
What I will say is I do think that women in their 20s and 30s right now are a little bit luckier because they don't have as much of the body image comparison that we did. I mean, I know they still see it on social media, but it's not like it was with us growing up. I know it's not. Every role model for us was a Barbie doll. I mean, everything was that. So it was really ingrained in us that you had to look that way. I feel that all body types are so accepted now, and that was not the case.
And that's an interesting perspective, because when I think back, you're right. It was literally, we played with Barbies. We looked at Glamour and Cosmo magazines. And back then things were still photoshopped and airbrushed. So you're right. We had a different level of pressure. We didn't have the right on your phone, right at your fingertips, social media pressure, but it was way different because it was very much streamlined. Like you said, I mean, the 80s and 90s, my gosh, that was all about you're skinny as you possibly can be. Yep. Big boobs, long blonde hair.
Tan.
That was it. Tan.
A lot of tan, very tan.
Tanning beds. Yeah.
Yes. All the regrets. So it's so interesting. So I guess so our journey continues on this. And this is why we wanted to share. We just wanted to share both of our stories because, number one, if you're considering it, you should know that they are a lifelong situation. But I also hope if you are the person that has judged people that have them, that you maybe have a little bit of an understanding, because it's so easy to judge people right now and go, that's so fake or that, but just know we're all raised so differently. We all have our own stories, our own background, our own limiting beliefs, not everybody is walking the same path. So it's what you choose for you might be a very different path than what somebody else chooses for them. And I think that's okay. I hope for people to have a little bit more compassion and not be so like, I don't know why people are so mean about it to me. Like I get some of the messages about BI, they're just downright mean. I'm like, why they don't even know my journey. Why are they so mean? They don't know.
I think if we just look at human nature, misery does love company. And I think if we can judge the people who might be happy and we're miserable with whatever we're dealing with. And I believe me, I mean, I'm open about this on my podcast. I walk the walk of being 25 pounds overweight, self-loathing, depression. I mean, full-blown depression in my 20s, being judged at the gym because I was overweight. And it all stemmed from this undiagnosed thyroid condition. But still, I mean, I was really, really down and out and I felt horrible. So that when you're in that misery state, you don't want to see other people happy. Like you look at happy people and you're like, I hate them. And it's that human nature. But what I would encourage instead is to get to know that person and get to know their struggle and their story, because there might be a lot more behind it than what meets the eye. I mean, my audience really has never heard the fact that my rib cage was twisted and one boob was small and one boob was saggy and I was, misshapen. And of course that's going to screw with your head, especially in your 20s, that's going to screw with your confidence.
As you're talking, I was just thinking how you almost can't win, because think about it. So like I said, I was made fun of for having a flat chest. You were made fun of for being you're made fun of for getting a flat chest. Then you're judged for not having a boob job in your early 20s or whatever. We get a boob job. Then it's like, okay, you finally fit in. Now we're almost judged for having that. Like, look at that. That's so dumb. You had that. Like, you literally cannot win. So you have to do things for yourself, because doing them for anyone else's approval is never a good plan. It's never a good plan.
No,
it's never going to work. We're going to get judged no matter what.
You're going to get judged no matter what. Exactly. So you do you, and don't worry about the rest of the world and what they say or what they think. Hold your head high.
I do want to talk a little bit about surgeon advice. Like if you are looking for, because we both having the number of implant surgeries we've had bad and good procedures.
Yes.
What I want to share is, number one, a surgeon should absolutely recognize all the things that we're talking about. If anyone tries to gaslight and say none of this is real, then that's a problem. Like a good surgeon is going to acknowledge that BII exists for people. They're going to acknowledge that this is not the only time you're going to have a surgery. They're going to acknowledge that they're not permanent, that you can have capsular contracture, all of that. I feel like that's fair. And they're going to give you realistic expectations for removing them or putting them in or any of that. That's what I feel about a good surgeon.
Yes, 100%. And a good surgeon, just like you experienced the other day, will spend time with you. This is not a factory where you're pushed in and out and you get a 20-minute consultation. Your surgeon spent 2 hours with you. My surgeon spent an hour and a half, 2 hours with me. And really, I mean, stayed in the room until a decision was made, until all of your and my questions were answered. And that is the key to a good surgeon.
Yes. And doing background checks, not just on Real Self or Google, like really understanding and knowing somebody else that went to that surgeon that had that experience. Cause I've heard horror stories about that. In fact, one of the situations I had before my last one was completely botched and terrible. And I didn't do my research on it, not like I should have. And it was awful. So just really important, because it is your body and you want to make sure you're doing your research there for sure, and not trying to cut corners because of a discount or whatever it is.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Please don't go to Mexico to have your breast surgery done or any surgery done. Just, you really do want to do that research, and you're looking for the perfectionist. You're looking for that man or woman that is looking at you and really talking to you about what's going to look good on you, not just doing the surgery for money. And a good surgeon will tell you, you know what you're thinking of, I don't think will work. How about we do this instead? Because they can see your anatomy. If they've done enough of these and they're skilled, then they're going to look at your anatomy and they're going to say, listen, I know what will look good, but they're also listening to you. So my surgeon, actually, I told you this story off air. I was so impressed when I heard after I woke up that my surgeon had the implants, that he thought would work in the OR. And he got in there and he's like, no, I know what she wants. I know what we're going for.
Yeah.
He called the Allergan rep and was like,
Wow.
I need you to bring me this and this to the hospital, to the ER. And my
That's
friend's
amazing.
like, yeah, you were just in there under, and he's meeting the Allergan rep to get your implants because he
Yeah.
knew that's what you
you'd
need.
want. Yeah.
And
to
I
take
was
care of
impressed.
that.
I was
Yeah.
totally impressed.
I like that. I like that. Well, gosh, this is fascinating, to be continued on this topic, but I'm so glad we shared this. I do want to ask a question. I'm just so curious your opinion on this. So a lot of times, especially if you search BII, you'll see these before and after pictures of people's faces. They're like, my eyes are white after. What I want to know, because you are the doctor, like, I'm just so curious. You just came out of surgery. You just had a bunch of anesthesia and drugs in you. How is that possible that somebody's instantly better? Or am I just missing something here?
I don't know about the instant. I mean, is it that day? Is it the day after? Is it after come out of anesthesia? I mean, who really knows? I know, the placebo effect is real too. I think there's that when women go into the breast explant surgery and they are so sick, like they have never felt this bad in their life. There's also that kind of relief that what I believe is making me sick is now out.
Yes.
And it's like, whew, okay, let's start this over again. So I think it's a combination of, possibly your body isn't battling that thing that is in you. And there's that mental relief, that weight that's been lifted off.
Gosh, I love this. Oh God, Amie, thanks for having this candid talk with me. I'm glad we did this because we were voice noting back and forth, and I'm like, let's share this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the summary, we'll give a big old summary for everyone. Now Jill and I did not respond to the ruptures. We were okay. No real health concerns that would put us down, put us in bed, make us say, oh my gosh, we've never felt this way in our entire life. So I think the message is, and then I'm going to hand it over to you to give your final thoughts. I think the message that I really want to drive home too, and I talk about this on the podcast, I don't care whether it's mold, heavy metals, Lyme disease, babesia, we're all exposed to these crazy things. Yes, I've been exposed to mold. We've all been exposed to heavy metals. If you live and breathe, you've been exposed to heavy metals. If you had amalgam fillings, you've been exposed to mercury your entire life. We've all been exposed. It's how shored up is your body at that time of exposure. And that could be exposure to an implant going in. How shored up is your body to be able to handle it? If you are in a state of a heavy, I say a stressor, but that means all kinds of things. That could be an illness, a sickness, an autoimmune condition, stress in your life. If you're under that heavy stress burden and you put one more thing on it, it's like that, the cards that fall, like the little feather comes down and boom, the rest of the deck falls down. If your body is shored up and you are exposed to different stressors, it doesn't react. It's non-reactive. It can handle that stressor. It can process it. It can deal with it. And I think that's what you really have to look at going into surgery, so that you're not faced with that decision. Do I get them out? Because now I'm sick. Make sure that you're doing all the hormone balancing, the eating properly, get your lifestyle in check, get your body shored up before you go into surgery. And I believe that process will definitely protect you from reacting to that implant.
Everything you said, I completely align with. And it's interesting. I've had so much thrown at me the last several years. So I think about, I had multiple injuries. I had a torn bicep. I had a broken foot. I had a ruptured disc. So multiple surgeries with anesthesia. Then I had a whole blood sugar issue that turned out to be a parasite. So random. So although I do think parasites are more common than people realize.
Yep.
I was living in a house that had mold, learned the hard way that we had black mold, and left. Then I learned I have this rupture. And I got to tell you all, I feel healthier than I have ever felt. Like I've had strike. Why do I feel healthier? Because I think I eat on point. I balance my hormones. Yep. I take care of I work out. I get natural sunlight every day. I do red light therapy. I have an oxygen chamber. Like I do all the things. I just, like you said, I shored it up. So Could I feel a lot better? Maybe but I feel honestly great I'm 52. I feel fantastic. So I don't know. And I'm not challenging some people that are not feeling amazing, but I think, like you said, it's the whole thing. It's not just about one thing as the cause. There's like, because we're all exposed to things. We are.
Exactly. 100%.
So I think thanks for having this conversation. For those of you that are annoyed by our conversation, I'm sorry that we didn't go where you wanted us to say, we're taking them out. We hate them, this, that, but a little bit different direction. But I hope you have a little bit more of an understanding of the journeys that we've been on, and more to come from us. But I really wanted to share this today. Thank you.
Definitely more to come. And thank you as well.